Alrighty, welcome to the stream. I might just give a brief rundown before we get started of what we'll be going through in today's stream. I'll just wait to see if more people jump in the stream and then we'll get started. But before then, what we'll be doing is we'll be using Gamefruit. So that's gamefruit.com to go and make a tutorial game. And there are a bunch of tutorial games in Gamefruit, but we're going to be focusing on a tutorial called Aotearoa 1840 Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And in this tutorial, which is right here on the dashboard of Gamefruit, you've got to make sure you're logged in, by the way. But I'll run through all of that when we start the stream in a few minutes. So this Aotearoa 1840 tutorial teaches you how to make a game with a timeline, an interactive timeline, based on history that you can enter yourself into a game, and you'll get something that looks a bit like that. And it'll actually load in a game that's mostly built, but it has some bits that we need to go and edit. And the good thing about this tutorial resource as well is that it has, on step 2, it has a link to this great book called Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and you can actually get a link to it online for free PDF, and it's hosted by the Ministry of Education. So if you guys want to grab that before we get started, or you can wait when the stream starts and then just follow along. So let's see, how many people do we have in the stream? Okay, that's looking pretty good. Well, we might get started then. I'll do my little introduction and we can jump right into it. Okay, welcome to Gamefruit's Code Talk, a live digital technology stream on how to code real video games powered by real game developers. I'm Dave and I'm your host. Today I'm going to take you through Aotearoa 1840. This activity is a digital companion for an existing resource made by the Ministry of Education here in New Zealand called Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and available on the Ministry of Education TKI website as well as their Learning from Home website. These links are in the description and in the comments and in the Aotearoa 1840 tutorial on our website, which I will be taking you through in a minute. The Aotearoa 1840 activity is all about building an interactive timeline based on the events that surrounded the Treaty of Waitangi. Our tutorial takes you through this process and uses Te Tiriti o Waitangi book as a research guide. Together you'll be able to make a cool interactive digital outcome based on New Zealand's unique history. Another way of using this could be with your teachers, who might know additional local treaty stories that aren't covered in the book. We encourage you to explore these subjects as widely as possible because learning history is fun. The great thing about using games for education is the opportunity it provides for learners with different learning needs. Okay, now I'm going to take you through building your own digital timeline. So let's get started. So that is at gamefruit.com. Gamefruit.com. And first, you're going to make sure that you have an account or that you're logged in. Now, I'm currently logged in, but I'll just step you through the process. I'll log out what it's like to create an account just for anyone that's new. So you want to click log in up there. And then, is this a part of News Dealer's history? I don't know what that is, Jacob Lowe, but that's a good question. Maybe you could put some more information about that in the chat. Okay, so logging in. You can sign in with Google or Facebook. I'd recommend that. That's pretty easy. Or you can click create an account. And then you just want to put your username, email, and password in there. And you can talk about the kind of things that best describe you. Okay. Let me put my details in, and then we can jump into the tutorial. Okay, so when you're logged in with GameFruit, you want to scroll down to tutorial games down here in the dashboard and pick Aotearoa 1840. That is the tutorial game we'll be building on today. So we'll learn a bit about the history of the Treaty of Waitangi and how it's affected New Zealand Aotearoa. And there are some learning outcomes there, inputs and outputs from digital technologies, but also Aotearoa histories. Everyone who completes the activity will learn certain events surrounding Te Tiriti o Waitangi. So let's go. Okay, and we'll see GameFruit loads up. We've got our game here, and then we've got our tutorial sidebar on the right. And then we've got this sidebar on the left. You don't need to worry too much about this one over on the left. This is more if you're building a game, but we will be mostly programming our game using this area in the middle and this area on the right. Okay, so step 1, playing the game. The game's incomplete, but we can see how it plays so far. We click play up in the corner there. What can we do? Can we click start? Yes, we can. And we have a timeline here, and it shows dates from 1250 all the way through to 2018. And it looks like we should be able to click on these events in the timeline here, but we can't. So that might be something that we're going to have to add to ourselves. And there's also a little how to use this resource button on the start page, which is pretty handy. Okay, so we want to go and start programming some of these buttons in our timeline. Let's close our game preview and look at the rest of the instructions here. So those are the 12 important events. And we need to program them. So next step. Step 2, learning and writing about our history. So you can press that. Whenever you're playing the game, you can press the little close button down there to close it. Now we want to open level 2, which is the timeline in our game. So if we click on this number 2 up here, we can open up the timeline level. And in here, there are 12 timeline events, as you can see. 12 timeline events. Now I'm moving my view of the game around using this panning tool, but you could zoom out a bit if you wanted as well. That would be fine too. Okay, so each of these events needs a description written about it. If you're not sure what these events are, and I don't think anyone would blame you if you don't know what some of them are, there is a great book called Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which you can grab a copy of. If you click this link here, read it online, Te Tiriti o Waitangi. If you click on that, it opens up a new page. And it takes us to the Ministry of Education website, where they have the book where we can download a PDF, TSM PDF or text. I think we want just text. Text should give us the full PDF. I think it's one of those. Let's just try both of them. I'm going to save that file, and then that will download for me. Let's just open that up. And here we go. So the text one was what you wanted. And this is great. It's free. And it's a great book as well, provided by the Ministry of Education. Now you could read through the whole book at your own pace. It's very informative. It looks great. It looks like a comic book, right? the most informative part of this book that ties to the resource that we're currently going through is on page 16, right near the end. We've got this timeline. So we can see 1250 to 1300. The first Polynesians arrive in Aotearoa. So if we go back to our game and have a look at the programming on our first event here with the picture of the waka. If we right click on that and edit the script on 1250 text, it says, I still need to write about what happened in 1250 to 1300. Maybe I should do some research. Yes, and that's exactly why we grabbed that book. The first Polynesians arrive in Aotearoa. So that is actually what we want to write in here, from 1250. So that's in the text on the right. We want this text on the left to still say broadcast display, but on the right here, we want this to say the text that we like to display. So that's going to be from 1250 to 1300. The first Polynesians arrived in Aotearoa. Okay. Now, let's see if the information that we've typed in here actually works in our game. We can click play to see what will happen. Okay, then we can click start. If I click on 1250 to 1300, nothing happens. There's something extra that we need to add to our code. So still none of these work. So let's close that game and move on to the next step. The next step is using mouse input to program this event. So we can trigger pressing that button in the game to actually do something. Right now, this block here, with our information that we've typed in, it needs to be connected to a trigger. In programming, this is known as an event. We want an event to fire. So if we go to events and grab under mouse, we want when the player presses myself. So that's for any button, when the player presses myself. We want these two blocks to be connected. Got to be connected. Can't be floating around like this, then it doesn't know when to happen. So make sure it's connected like that. When the player presses myself, I will display this information. Okay, now let's test that out. Remember, that was from events, when the player presses myself, under the mouse subheading. Okay, let's play it, see what it does. And then if we click start, and then click on this button from 1250, there we go. We've got some information displaying. Very cool. And yes, we can capitalize Polynesians as well. We can capitalize that. Okay. So that is now telling the game to display this information when the button is pressed. Great work, great work. Let's go and save our game now. So we'll close this script up here. We'll click on that X and save the programming there that we just did. And then if we go file up here, we want to click file and then save game to save what we've got so far. I haven't saved it yet, so it'll ask me what I want to name it. Aotearoa 1840 stream is good for me. Okay. Now, what's next? Describing and programming the full timeline. So now we want to go and do the same thing with this programming here. We want to go and put that on all of these other buttons. And they have little bits of the programming they need, but they don't have the full thing. So we need to go and find those same blocks. And then we also need to find the appropriate information. So what happened in 1769? What happened in 1835? What happened in 1840? Well, thank goodness for this trusty Te Tiriti o Waitangi book with this timeline that lines up perfectly with our game. Okay, so what did happen in 1769? Well, Captain Cook arrived in Aotearoa. And if you wanted to read a little bit more about that, it will be, there should be a little description of it up here. Okay, so 1769, Captain Cook arrives in Aotearoa. So let's go add that programming to our Captain Cook button. Right click on that and edit script. And then we want to say when the player presses myself, which is from events. When the player presses myself, connect that to the broadcast display block. And by the way, this broadcast display just tells the rest of the game, hey, you need to display whatever this text is. In 1769, Captain Cook, did it say arrives in Aotearoa? Captain Cook arrives in Aotearoa. Okay, let's play that now. Great, that works. And there is heaps of room for you to add more information as well, which I would encourage. Maybe check out the Wikipedia page, maybe check out the other resources on the TKI site. Okay, let's do the rest of these. What happened in 1835? Well, remember, we got to have that when the player presses myself event connected in. And we want this to say in 1835. Take a guess. What happened in 1835? 28th of October, 1835. He whakaputanga o te rangatiratanga o Nu Tireni, the Declaration of Independence is signed. I wonder if I can copy paste that. Does that count as cheating? Didn't really work, did it? Not quite. So, 28 October 1835. This might take me a little while to spell out. He whakaputanga. He whakaputanga. Putanga. And if you have any questions about this, feel free to chuck them in the chat. O te rangatiratanga. O te rangatiratanga. Rangatiratanga o Nu Tireni. O Nu Tireni. The Declaration of Independence is signed. The Declaration of Independence. Pretty sure that would be capitalized. Independence is signed. Okay. Let's see how that looks. So that was for 1835. Looks great. Okay, so we'll just keep working through that. 6 Feb 1840, Te Tiriti o Waitangi is signed. So I might be doing this kind of fast because I have a lot of practice using Gamefruit, but feel free to take it at your own pace. A lot of this is repetition at this point. The most important thing at this point is getting the facts right, so make sure you do your proper research. 6 Feb 1840 on 6th February 1840 Te Tiriti o Waitangi is signed. Okay, close that and save that. First row done. 1845, some guns. Take a guess at what that is. 1845 with the rifles, the muskets. That is the New Zealand Wars. New Zealand Wars begin 1845. Oh, remember, gotta use that mouse press event when the player presses myself. In 1845, the New Zealand Wars begin. In 1865, the Native Land Court is established. Save that. 1865. So when the player presses myself, broadcast display. In 1865, the Native Land Court is established. Alright. Then we've got the New Zealand Wars end, 1872. Wow, went on for quite a while, eh? 1872, the New Zealand Wars end. And again, we got to connect that event when the player presses myself. So that is the input, by the way, when we're referring to the digital technologies curriculum, computational thinking. When you press on something, when you do something with your mouse or keyboard or touchscreen, whatever, when you're talking to the device, when you're talking to the programming by doing something, that's an input. So when I press the button, that's an input. And the output here is what the computer is telling you, displaying. It's displaying that text. So let's just make sure all my inputs create outputs. That one works. That one works. That one works. That one works. Okay, 1906. Fairly famous looking politician there. 1906, James Carroll makes his speech in Parliament. 1906. In 1906, James Carroll, so with two L's, yes, makes his speech in Parliament. Good. When the player presses myself. Okay. Final four. What happened in 1960, February 6th? That's a pretty famous day. Waitangi Day established as a national day of commemoration. 13 years later, it becomes a national holiday. Okay, so in 1960, Waitangi Day is established as a national day of commemoration. Established as a national day of commemoration. 13 years later, it becomes a national holiday. 13 years later, it becomes a national holiday. Very good. Oh, and remember, we need to connect that up with an event. So if we go to events, when the player presses myself. Okay. Let's close that and save that. Now, I'm going to save my game before I do the final three. File, save game. Always a good idea to keep saving. Okay, final three. Final three? 1960. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes, final three. 1975, the Waitangi Tribunal is set up. In 1985, its powers are extended to investigate historic claims. Waitangi Tribunal is set up. 1985. In 1985, its powers are extended to investigate historic claims. 1985, surely that's possessive, right? With a little apostrophe. Nope. Always get tripped up by that one. 1985, its powers are extended to investigate historic claims. Investigate historic claims. Great. Remember, got to connect that event when the player presses myself. Okay. Last two. 1989. First modern treaty settlement is agreed over land at Waitangi Caves. 1989. In 1989, the first modern treaty settlement is agreed. First modern treaty settlement is agreed over land at Waitangi Caves. Waitangi Caves. Okay. Got to get that event once again when the player presses myself. Display that text. Save that. Final one. That looks like Jacinda Ardern meeting at Waitangi. Okay, so 2nd to 6th of February 2018. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern spends 5 days at Waitangi meeting with Māori. It's the longest visit of any Prime Minister so far. So, let's fill in that final one. 2 to 6 February. Jacinda Ardern spends 5 days at Waitangi meeting with Māori. Spends 5 days at Waitangi meeting with Māori. I wonder if we can snag one of those special A's. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. It's the longest visit of any Prime Minister so far. It's the longest visit of any Prime Minister so far. Okay, and then lastly, got to get that when the player presses myself event, and there 2 to 6 of February in 2018. Not this February. Okay. And that brings us up to date. Let's save that. We'll save our game, and then we'll go and have a playthrough. Okay. Well, I know all of these work. Great, great. 1872, 1906, 1960, 1975, 1989, 2018. Awesome. Okay, once you've made all 12 event images display a description, you can move on to the next step. Alrighty, next step. Now we can publish and share our game. So make sure you play it through like I did to make sure it is all good. And then when you want to publish it, to share it, you want to click File, Publish Online. And you can give your game a name. I'm going to call mine Aotearoa 1840, Te Tiriti or Waitangi. And summary will be learn about New Zealand's history, and then we can publish. Okay, now once we've published it, we'll get this link, and if we click on that link, it will open up our game full screen, and anyone can play this game and even learn a bit more about Te Tiriti o Waitangi. So you can share that link. If you copy paste that, you can give that to anyone and they can go and play your game. Okay, let's see if anyone has any questions about what we've covered today, or Game Fruit in general. Maybe you're working on another kind of a game and you've got a question about something. Feel free to chuck those in the chat and I will try to help you out. Okay. Well, I hope you have learned something about New Zealand's history, about how quick and easy it is to make a game with Game Fruit. And again, it's great for providing that opportunity for learners with different learning needs to find their, perhaps, a better way of learning material that they wouldn't engage with traditionally. Games are a great way for people to get engaged. Okay, well, I think we will wrap the stream up there. Hope you enjoyed it and hope you learned something, and we'll see you in the next one.